Colin is a ring for special type pilot. Let's get to her abilities. So first we have Christmas bells are ringing. Upon deployment, draws in all enemy units within range by 3 spaces and increases deployment points by 14. Be 15 if you use any nightmare frame that boosts her skill to level 5. Next she has a rapid relocation time, so reduces this unit's redeployment time by 38.8% during combat, and I believe she also has a fast redeployment time on top of that. Okay, let's talk about the pros of this Colin. She's a cost increaser upon deployment. We don't have too many of those in the game, so obviously that's a really nice feature to her. She also has pretty good balanced attack stats, so if you had to in a pinch, you could deploy her as a melee or long range attacker. Although it looks like the melee is better, so probably her than the Gurren would be better than anything else. Currently we don't have the Gurren flight enabled version, so that level 5 boost and using the range attack part won't come up that often. So I would say just use her with the Gurren Mark II, her Glasgow, or Borai. Because she is part of the Ashford faction, you could of course use her for the challenge missions if you need a cost increaser, and in certain niche situations the reverse blowaway effect is pretty useful, like you can grab enemies and bring them with you down the hole, but most of the time it's
not worth it.
And that's the problem with this character. The reverse blowaway effect is just not that great. Another thing that sucks about this character is that the cost increase is 14. So if you do the math and you have a fully upgraded Glasgow that costs 0 to deploy and she costs 5 to deploy, then you're going to get a cost increase of 10 every time you deploy her, which is okay, but compared to Jeremiah, who's 25, it's really not that great. So while you will have a mediocre reverse blowaway effect, you also have a mediocre cost increase effect. And in some cases, I would rather, actually not in some cases, I would say in most cases, I'd probably just rather have a standard assault cost increase pilot than using Colin, but that's just me. So that's the problem with her, a decent cost increaser, but the secondary effect is just not that great. Also, that artwork, yeah, it's pretty bad. Let's talk about the new Nunnally. Nunnally is a rank 3 special type pilot. Let's go to her abilities. So first she has a pull-in effect. Upon deployment, draws in all enemy units within range by 3 spaces, just like the new Colin. And also she has a cost reduction for this unit by 3 and the deployment cost of Christmas Miracle pilots by 2. Pretty standard stuff. That's what most of these pilots do as the third wheel of their factions. Eventually they'll change that, but for now that's how all these pilots work. When it comes to the pros of this new Nunnally, there aren't many to discuss. Yes, she has a cost reduction for the faction, which could be useful in certain situations because after all, she's part of the Ashford faction, so combine her with the 2 millies and you can make Suzaku and Colin basically cost nothing. Actually, they would be free at that point, or close enough anyways, so that's pretty good. But the problem with this Nunnally is that her main ability is the reverse blowaway effect, and that's very niche, which means you're not going to use it most of the time. Another problem with this character is that she doesn't have a fast redeployment time. So let's say you had to use the ability for whatever reason, you can't use it as frequently as the new Christmas Colin, which kinda sucks. It's exactly the same way when it comes to the athletic Yuffie and the athletic Cornelia. So while I do love the artwork, the effects themselves are not that great. When it comes to all the free rank 3s we've got in the past, this might be one of the worst ones, which is kind of sad because again the artwork is really nice. Let's talk about Christmas Suzaku. Suzaku is a rank 4 assault pilot. Let's go to his abilities. Santa Helper, or Santa's Helper. Upon deployment, hits 5 enemies within range for 5.5 times your attack power and increases deployment points by 25. Also, reduces his unit's redeployment time by 38.8% during combat. So here's the pros of this new Suzaku. He is an improved version of Vampire Jeremiah, plus has the abilities of the original Jeremiah, which is pretty awesome. He has balanced attack stats, so in the worst case scenario, and I have done this on one of my accounts, I will just use him as a ranged attacker if I have nothing else, specifically for the Ashford faction. And of course, he does really well in that faction because of the millies, this new Nunnally, and so forth. So really good stuff there. And obviously, he's godly in arena mode. When it comes to the cons of this Suzaku, there are quite a few. The first and probably the most obvious is the fact that he has a really high deployment cost for what he is, because his deployment cost is 6 and he increases your cost by 25, which means already it's only an increase by 19, but if you use him with the Lancelot, it's obviously a lot less, and other nightmare frames like that. So he'll never be as good as Jeremiah when it comes to increasing your cost, but I guess that's the point of the other ability. And because of the fact that he's not like the rank 3 Jeremiah, you can't just use him as a standard cost increaser where you deploy him and then withdraw him, which means you have to utilize him to take out other enemies upon deployment, which means sometimes he can be hard to use. In my video on Sayako, which I released last year, I said that I thought that Suzaku's combination of abilities was better than hers, but in retrospect, I was wrong. Sayako is way better. So is this new Suzaku bad? No, he's excellent. Just keep in mind there are some issues with the character, so between the two banners, I would recommend going for the new Yuffie over these characters, but it's totally up to you and what pilots you currently have at your disposal. If you just start playing the game, then obviously you're going to want to go really hard on this banner because you don't have much, but for those who've been playing this game since it came out, you could probably skip this banner if you already have an established team, but it's totally up to you. By the way, if you want my thoughts on the new Yuffie, check out this video right here, and here's a tier list of all the pilots for February 2024. Go check out those videos right now.